Good evening, friends. A little bit late tonight. I'll let you guess why. Welcome to the Maslin Fantasy League show. I am Ryan, manager of the Part-Time Ninjas. He is Dan, manager of the Dancing Squirrels. Dan, how are you doing tonight?
I am great. Excited to be here. I've had a really good week. Ate some good food thanks to Phil.
Yeah, he hooked you up. You and my
Supporting
boy
the
Jarvis.
supporting the Maslin Tiger football coaches. That's such a great guy, Phil. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope it warmed your heart to buy lunch for the Maslin Tiger coaching staff. I mean, they definitely appreciated it. He's all week long, man. Best wings he's ever had. Tasted so good for some reason.
I love it.
Oh.
I love it. Well, folks, we have reached the halfway point of the season. We are 7 games in. We only play 14 regular season games. So this is a big week. This is the start of the second half of the season. And honestly, looking at the standings, a bunch of teams are still alive, Dan. It's relatively incredible. And something occurred to me last week. So we're going to talk trades first, and then we'll talk about the standings. The reason I say something occurred to me last week is, we catered to our guest last week. And so with Drifter on the show, we talked about everybody by their team names, but then we go right back this week to referring to everybody by their actual names because we know them. So I am going to start sharing my screen on Sleeper so he can see team names while we're talking about these teams. But I don't have that set up right now. I have it set up to talk about trades. So we're going to talk about trades first, Dan. So 2 trades on Sunday went down because I was in a roster spot situation. I'll let you throw your 2 cents on these if you have any. I shipped Tank Dell for a 6th round pick, Josh Palmer for an 8th round pick. Like I said, I was already in a roster situation, and I have an upcoming roster situation in week 10 where Kelsey and Mahomes are on bye. So I'm just planning for the future at this point.
Yeah, I mean, no, they were just you were going to cut him anyway, so you got something for him. Palmer, it is what it is. He's like their 4th receiver when everyone's healthy, so I don't think that's really relevant. I really like Tank Dell's future, so Rob going out and getting him, I thought was a good move by him.
I agree. Plus, Rob getting Tank Dell off of me got me Tajay Spears back, and now there's Derrick Henry trade rumors. I'm pretty excited about that. And then in a more significant trade, though Taylor openly admits he didn't even need him, Taylor gives up a 4-4-5 to Eric for DK Metcalf. So this puts Eric with, in my opinion, 0 keepers, and Taylor brings in a 3rd receiver who, as of right now, he's not even starting against his Browns this week.
Yeah, that trade didn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. I understand DK hasn't had the year we would have expected out of him, but trading him for 4s and 5s was a bit shocking.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, new people are going to come into the league and play the league their way. I'm going to be interested to see how it all plays out. As I mentioned, we got a little bit of solidifying of the playoff picture moving into the second half of the season. So up on the screen here, you can actually see our top 6. So right now, I think I can scroll a little bit. Yeah, we can get everybody up here. So right now, we have Darren at 7-0. The top 6 playoff teams are solidified, and obviously I use that term very loosely. There are 6 of us above 500. We are making the playoffs, and there are 7 of us below 500. We are not making the playoffs. So Dan, I wanted to get the show started this week by taking a look at these playoff teams compared to who you and I said would be in the playoffs. And when you look back at our original ranking show, we took a look and we picked 6 teams each, obviously. We only had 1 team that we didn't agree on. So we agreed on myself, Steve Horvath, yourself, JR, Little Stevie, and then you had Terry as the 6th team. Well, I mean, you had him as your champion, but you had Terry as the 6th team, and I had New Rob as my 6th team. So let's start with looking at those playoff teams. I guess maybe we start with the game you came up with first, because I think it's going to play very heavily into this. So Dan, you had a great idea that because we are at the halfway point of the season, we should take a look at the biggest disappointment, the biggest surprise, and the league MVP from a player perspective. And we're going to look more at the surprise and disappointments from a player perspective, but we're going to look at teams this week. So I think it's safe to say, unless you've come up with somebody else, I think Darren has to be the biggest surprise team right now, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that not only is he in the top half, he's above 500 when neither one of us expected him to make the playoffs. He's undefeated. I think I saw a stat that there's only like 2% of teams that are still undefeated in all of Sleeper Fantasy teams. And for us to have one of those magically talented and gifted fantasy
awesome.
players.
I did not see that, and that is awesome.
They were really specific, like 2.3% of fantasy teams are still undefeated.
Hell yeah. Darren, I know you watch this show. Congratulations, buddy. That's very cool.
So that's impressive. He's done a great job. So that, to me, that's definitely not even, there's no discussion for me. It's definitely Darren.
Yeah, I agree. It's Darren for me, and specifically looking at his team, and we're going to talk more about these players probably next week. But Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, Raheem Mostert, the 3 running backs he landed, I think he got Swift in the draft. So Walker through the trade that you've been busting Phil's balls on forever. He gets Swift early on in the draft and then steals Raheem Mostert, who nobody saw coming. So you can't use the word surprise and not talk about a 7-0 Darren team. I'm going to let you give your disappointment first. Who would you say your biggest disappointment is?
I mean, for me, it's got to be Terry.
Okay. Well, yeah, obviously.
To take away the fact that, like, I expected him to win the whole thing. I mean, I had him as a playoff team, and he's not there. And I know he's 3-4. He's on the edge of it, but I don't feel like Terry's team is playing well. It's not like he's playing well and losing.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, you have to question Justin Herbert moving forward. Like, he's just not playing well. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, could Terry even keep him again? Should he be traded? I mean, or like from an NFL perspective, he doesn't look good when he's out there.
And it was controversial when Terry kept him to begin with. So,
and then you have Austin Eckler, who has not looked good since he got hurt. You can't feel good about that. You have an aging Derrick Henry on this team. The future for Terry is staring in the face of a massive rebuild for his fantasy team moving forward.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I went a different route. And the reason I made you go first is because I knew you weren't going to have the same team as me. Because my biggest disappointment is you, Dan. 3 wins right now when I literally thought you were going to kind of run away. I thought you'd be closer to where Darren is than where Darren is. You're barely holding a playoff spot until you got Joe Burrow. You were having the same issue you had last year, QB issues, which I expect better than to repeat issues. But the most important disappointment I have with your team is that you fucking have Puka Nacua, of all people, to pick him up when I have to drop him on that roster bubble. Breaks my fucking heart. So you're 3-4 just wasting.
I am 4-3. Stop putting me 3-4. I'm above 500. I'm in the playoffs. Get off my back.
Dude, even in my notes, I have that you have 3 wins. I'm a fucking idiot. So regardless, 4 wins.
I am a disappointment. I am on that list. I wouldn't be 4-3 if it wasn't for the fact I've had like the 3rd easiest schedule so far in this league. My team is wildly inconsistent. And yes, I'm a disappointment. Aaron Jones, my running backs. The worst part is if you watch football and you watch these games, James Cook looks like a really good running back. He just doesn't score fantasy
just not doing it in fantasy.
Javon Williams looks great. Like a really good running back. Looks great. Just doesn't put up fantasy numbers. It is what it is. Hopefully my team can put it together at the right time. If you're asking me, when do I want to play my best football? In October?
Obviously not.
December?
I mean, 4 wins at the halfway point. 8 wins is very, very likely to make the playoffs. So you're not wrong. You're in a position to do what you want to do here. And then league MVP right now, Dan. I think there's only one answer for this, but I'm going to let you go first just to see if we agree.
To me, it's Tyreek Hill.
Okay, we agree.
He's been outstanding. He's the leader for Darren's team. The whole injury thing right now with him, I've had a crazy busy week, so I haven't really kept up on all the news for him. I know there's some questions. It made it sound like he's gonna be out for a while, but he ended up coming back sooner.
Exactly. So they were flirting with calling it Jamar Chase's injury from last year, and then he was back at practice today. So that's very weird. So,
but yeah, I think he has been the best player in the league. We'll see how the rest of the year goes. It's only halfway point, but he's been outstanding. Great move for Darren to go out and get him.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
What idiot traded him away?
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you think that Tyreek got traded and Christian McCaffrey got traded, because I have on my notes that Tyreek has 11 more points than Christian McCaffrey, over 1 more point per game. He is on pace for 2,000 receiving yards and 17 touchdowns right now. Now, obviously, there are some injury issues that will need to be worked out if he misses any time or doesn't miss any time. And this week, whether he plays or not, could be an interesting week for Tyreek Hill taking on the New England Patriots. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So yeah, Tyreek Hill, league MVP by a long shot, I really think. So going back, Dan, looking at the 6 playoff teams, here is what I find interesting as I bring the standings back up here. Is we were both wrong about Darren, and then we were both wrong about our 6th guy, Terry and Rob Pete. Otherwise, we've almost called the playoffs perfectly, except we still just don't give any love to Phil.
His team has been hot. He's been scoring. I mean, he has scored the most points in this league.
Yeah,
this year.
That's kind of what I was getting at here. Is obviously we were wrong about Darren. That's easy to be wrong about. Obviously we missed our 2 guys, Terry and Rob P. But last year, if you remember, it took us many, many weeks to catch on to Phil being good. This year, it seems like the same. And he has the most points in the league while we're sitting here talking up Darren's team.
And not only that, like I'm not to just murder his team when I talk about it. He has Desmond Ridder as his starting quarterback this week.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not because it's just someone's on bye. No, he has hot garbage at quarterback. He kept a garbage quarterback and has gotten nothing out of him this entire season. His running backs, one was suspended for 3 weeks. The other one is, on a questionable offense altogether. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he scores as many points as he does. I don't think it's going to last. I really don't. And that's not just because I like to bust on Phil, but I don't see it lasting. We'll see if he can hold on and keep it going, but I'm not a believer.
Yeah, nor am I, and that'll come up at the end of the show. But yeah, I just found that interesting that we're both sitting with 4 of our 6 playoff teams in the playoffs currently, and Phil and Darren are the ones we were the most wrong about. And so Phil, for the 2nd year in a row, we're the most wrong about. Let's get into these matchups, Dan. I have your matchup up first, just putting it bluntly. You are a 4-win team taking on a 1-win team. I guess I'll try to scroll down. Actually, no, I'll leave it up here at the top so people can see the team names since we always talk about the team names. That was the whole point on this. So I will go first because it's your team. I think this matchup is actually going to be a little bit closer than you want it to be. I could actually see an Eric win until we get to the flex spot. And your wide receivers for the 800th week in a row are what's going to make the difference in this game. Tyler Boyd versus Keenan Allen is a no contest for me. Whereas you could make arguments. He had the good week out of Gabe Davis, which could help with Puka Nacua. Olave should beat Rashid Shaheed, but Shaheed seems to find the end zone. You had the mediocre week out of Cook. So there are reasons he could win until you get to that wide receiver spot. You're too strong there continually. So I have you winning this matchup, obviously.
I'm going to say I'm going to win, but I'm going to say this.
For the first time this season, by the way, I went and tracked all of your picks.
And I am not confident. Like, I am not confident at all. My thing isn't necessarily the receivers, because I think his running backs could blow me out of the water and kind of balance that. It's going to be Burrow versus Stroud for me. Does Burrow come out of the bye ready to go, back to get that offense going? Did they make the adjustments? Is he healthier? Is he ready to go? Stroud going against a good Carolina defense. So I think that I feel like they don't. I don't feel like they're not going to. In terms of fantasy, I don't think they give up a ton of points. I could be wrong.
I'm going to look because I've been very, very high on Stroud coming out of this bye. I'm going to look it up specifically in our scoring. So bear with me just a second here. In Massland Football League scoring, Carolina gives up, yeah, you're right, middle of the road, 12.5 points on average to quarterbacks. So
it's on the road. It's at Carolina. Yeah, I just don't think that's a great matchup. We'll see.
But you picked yourself for the first time.
I'm going to pick myself.
Season. Oh, by the way, I went 4-3 last week. Dan went 6-1 yet again. And Dan, I finally went and got your total record. I have 27 wins in the game. You have 31 wins in the game. Darren, I think you keep track of your own. So if you're with us, throw it in the chat. I'd love to know what you're sitting at right now. Moving on to the next game, Dan. I put me versus Kenny. It's a 4-win team versus a 2-win team. So bear with me a second while I get it up on the screen here. No major players going off this week. Kenny had Tyler Bass go for 6 points, pretty honestly below average for a kicker, but Dan, I'll let you get us started on the analysis here.
I think you win. But I think Kenny's team's pretty mad at you for the disrespect you showed last week.
Yeah.
I think they keep it close. I don't think you're going to blow them out of the water. I mean, I think you'll be comfortable on Monday, not worrying too much about anything, but I think he's going to hang with you most of the day Sunday. Having your two Chiefs go against Denver. I mean, I know we talked in the show last week that going against Denver should be an advantage for quarterbacks.
Yeah, it really should have been.
But I think that your quarterback's a little bit better than the one I had last week going against Denver. So I think that's going to be too much. But I think Kenny keeps it respectable.
I don't think he keeps it respectable unless two things happen. If Jamar Chase continues on the pace he was continuing on and comes out of the bye hot, San Francisco gets beat by wide receivers. So it could be a nice Jamar Chase week. And you said you don't think I'll have too much to be worried about on Monday. I will have one very big thing to worry about on Monday. Detroit's defense gave up negative points last week. So there's a potential that I'll have to bench Detroit if I am winning going into the Monday night matchup because I don't trust these people whatsoever. But yeah, in my notes, I basically just had that my big three are going to big three all over Kenny. But Chase, Detroit defense, plus I'm having a little bit of a flex issue right now. I have David Montgomery. I don't really trust throwing Tyler Lockett in there. Oh, plus I had a note in the last game I wanted to throw out there. I think, this is it for this game. I think Kenny is making a mistake. I think he should be starting Josh Palmer over Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba, when you look at what he did last week with DK Metcalf out, Metcalf should be back this week, though Tyler Lockett is now dealing with an injury. But then going up against that Cleveland defense, I don't think JSN did as well as he should have done last week. And now he has a tougher defense. I think he should be playing Palmer as his second wide receiver.
I don't know. That great defense got shredded by the Colts last week. So
yeah, very much so. Like crazy game last week.
I will say CMC, I think the Bengals could contain CMC, might not have as big of a game as you're used to having from him.
And that's absolutely fair. I don't love having to start Ramondre Stevenson. I'll know a lot more about David Montgomery for Monday night. The issue is I'll have to make the decision on Sunday. So I'm hoping to hear some news because I don't want to wait and I don't want to go try to find someone from that game to sneak into a flex spot. So it's going to be interesting. I'm also picking myself to win just on the back of what Mahomes and Kelsey should do for me. I'm hoping it plays out that way. For our next matchup, I have Darren versus Rob P. Darren obviously sitting at 7 wins. Rob P sitting at 3 right now. And I'm not seeing that contest. I'm sure I scrolled right by it. There you go. So Rob currently up 14 points. He had Dalton Kincaid, the rookie, scoring his first touchdown of the season last night on Thursday night game. So I'll go ahead and get us started on this matchup. Let me find my notes real quick. So I say it could actually be closer than what I thought it was going to be, especially if Tyreek misses the game. I need to know a lot more about Tyreek Hill because Darren can survive without Tyreek Hill. With Rashee Rice or Cortland Sutton, he's going to be able to throw one of those guys into the game. He's going to be able to survive. But A.J. Brown going against Washington cooked them the last time they played and could have another monster game and keep Rob in the running here in a very important game for his playoff hopes. I'm going to take Darren, but I'm more worried than I typically am.
I'm taking Rob.
Are you?
I am. Rob's team has been scoring points. He's been winning. Darren's team has been winning, but they have been winning lower scoring games. I just have a feeling. I feel like it's nothing to not slant on Darren. Darren's team is great. We've been pretty much just talking about how great it's been for him.
Yeah.
I think this is the week. I think this is the week that Rob gets the win over him. I know Rob's gonna be mad that I picked him. He likes it when we don't, but
yeah, I definitely know he hates it when we both pick him. So.
Well, I'm picking you, Rob. I think you're gonna get the win this week. Still love your team, Darren. You're still the number one. But
yeah,
Rob,
like I said, I think it's gonna be a close matchup, so I'm not entirely surprised to see you take him in this matchup. We're gonna go ahead and jump to JR versus Stevie, a game that had some Thursday night consequences. Rashad White goes for 13 points, and then Stevie gets 12.5 out of Bernard and 9 out of the Buffalo defense. Kind of disappointing out of the defense, but this dude, Bernard, has been a tackle monster this season, just racking up the points for Stevie. Double digits in all but 2 games so far.
I actually picked him up last week until Eric cut.
So he hasn't been on Stevie's team this whole time. I gotcha. Okay.
No, I literally had him on my team last week for 3 days until I saw that Eric had to put his jet linebacker on Quincy Williams.
Gotcha.
Quincy
All right. I'll
waiver.
let you pick this one first. So Stevie versus JR. JR sitting at 5 wins right now. Stevie sitting at 3 wins.
I got Stevie taking this win. JR's team has not been playing well. I don't trust Russell Wilson at quarterback. I just don't believe in JR's team overall. When you look at his whole roster, I know he's got the wins, but he's kind of think he's in a situation like me where he's gotten wins because of schedule versus winning because you're just dominating. So.
Yeah. I flip-flopped on this game like 800 times to the point where my notes said one thing and my picked winner said something else, because I was about to say we disagree, but we actually agree. Because I was about to say I had JR. I think they pretty well, I don't want to say cancel each other out. Stevie's running back issues scare me right now. Starting this Amari DiMercado or whatever the hell his name is, and Breece Hall has a very, very good matchup this week. If Stevie has a healthy Miles Sanders, I like him even more. I'm still going to pick him. You kind of hit the nail on the head. Russ was so bad against Kansas City back in week 6. JR can win at running back, but I think Stevie wins every other position in this matchup, and that's why I'm picking him. So, what do we got next here? That would be Terry versus Phil. Both teams, or no, I apologize. It is Horvath versus Mott. Similar situation, 4-win team taking on a 3-win team. I'll get them up on the screen here. Horvath obviously got Josh Allen off on Thursday. 27 points from Josh Allen. And honestly, I think that enough, like what we saw last week from the Thursday game, I think that could be enough to put Horvath ahead. They pretty well cancel each other out at every other position. Trevor Lawrence has not managed more than 16 fantasy points in our league at any single game this season. Allen basically just doubled that up. And I do want to point out that Rob made the actual choice of Trevor Lawrence over Josh Allen for his keeper decision. I do have an issue with both of them at wide receiver, Dan. For Rob, it's KJ Osborne. For Horvath, it is Jerry Jeudy. I think Horvath should have Kendrick Bourne in the game. He has been very, very underrated. And I think Rob is better off with Romeo Doubs. Doubs is very clearly the receiving leader there and almost had 2 touchdowns last week, dropped one that went into one of his teammates' hands. So I think they're both making a roster mistake, but I don't know that it's going to make any difference in the game. I think Josh Allen has already done enough to go ahead and secure the win for Horvath.
Yeah, I agree. I have Steve winning. Also, just having Rob's Jaguars go against the Steelers defense is not ideal. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Dobbs should be in there over Osborne. I understand where I was thinking there was that with Justin Jefferson out, Osborne's going to get the looks, but he's not getting the looks.
Jordan Addison's taken over.
But I don't – when you look at Horvath's team, I mean, you can't trust Ridley. You can't trust Jerry Jeudy.
And you can't trust Bijan Robinson right now either. So.
I mean, you love his tight end and all, but –
got to. Justin Fields out again this week, if that makes any difference on the Cole Kmet love. I didn't even see what did Cole Kmet do last week.
Nothing.
Oh, what is that 0? Was that 0 points? Oh man, what a rough week to be a supporter of Cole Kmet. Something I will never have to worry about. All right, and then we got Phil versus Terry again. Another 4 versus 3 win matchup. Another matchup with big playoff implications. Phil started off with 12.5 points on the Thursday night game. Stephon Diggs giving him that 12.5. And I would have to say, Dan, I'm going to let you start off on this one. 12.5 for Stephon Diggs almost feels disappointing.
Oh, I think that is disappointing. I mean, he's been probably Phil's best player overall this season. And then, like I said earlier, Terry's Chargers have not been playing well, but they go against Chicago. They could have a big week this week. I'm actually taking Terry. I think he gets the win. I don't think that Adam Thielen's going to keep putting up monster points either for Phil. I don't trust that one. Houston's defense has been good as well. I could see that being that Houston-Carolina game being a low-scoring game. Again, I'd also don't – Desmond Ridder. Just I can't sleep well at night if that guy was my quarterback.
Yeah, that's basically where I stand. I put this as another big QB advantage. I know you're down on Justin Herbert. I still like Justin Herbert. Obviously, Terry needs Austin Eckler to show up. Phil needed a bigger night from Diggs, as I alluded to. And you kind of stole my notes here, Dan. Tough matchup for Adam Thielen. Houston does not give up a lot of points to fantasy wide receivers. I'm interested on your take on this because Terry won the DeAndre Hopkins waiver contest, has him in the flex, but Gus Edwards going up against a very beatable Arizona D coming off of a very strong week. Would you consider Gus Edwards over DeAndre Hopkins in Terry's flex spot?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm the one that cut Hopkins. I didn't want to, but I was just in a spot I needed to cut somebody, and with my receivers, he was never going to play.
Yeah,
barring some injuries happening. But the running back he had a good week last week. If Baltimore's offense keeps going well, Edwards could continue to roll.
Well, not to mention we're looking at Will Levis starting this game, but they've said both quarterbacks will play for the Titans, and that just worries me greatly for DeAndre Hopkins and that offense in general. And then we end it with that.
And his old age.
Oh, yeah, and the fact that he's just an old man. And we end it with our only 3 versus 3 win matchup. You could very much argue the playoffs are on the line here. They got both kind of mediocre Monday nights, 14 points out of Chris Godwin, 10 points out of Mike Evans. I don't even want to call it mediocre. It's better than average, but no one who truly changed the game on Monday night. But they both have issues at quarterback as well, Dan. Tua Tagovailoa, who is going up against New England, where he struggled in week 4, I think it was. I'll look at my notes here in a second. And Geno Smith going up against Cleveland, who obviously just got shredded by Gardner Minshew, but are they going to let that happen 2 weeks in a row? I do think not only is this the only 3 versus 3 matchup win of the season, it's also probably the week, but it's also the closest matchup of the week when I was going through because of like the issues at quarterback with Tua, again, having a bad game against New England, now might not even have Tyreek Hill. I believe there is a roster change that it could affect this. I'm picking Greg to win this game, much to Taylor's chagrin. However, I am very big that Nico Collins should be playing in this game over Michael Thomas. It is Taylor's running backs versus Taylor's wide receivers versus Greg's running backs. I think they're close enough that it cancels each other out. And this game comes all the way down to the bottom of the roster for me. I don't love Jacksonville versus Pittsburgh, even though they are my stream of the week for the article I write. Baltimore versus Arizona, I think, could be another enormous game for the Baltimore defense, and that could be the deciding factor, which is why I am picking Greg. If Tua's, I'm going to look like an idiot, but I just don't see it happening against New England.
I hate the matchups that both these teams have. I feel like they're both.
It's an ugly week.
I'm going to sit here and say this is going to be a low-scoring game because I think everybody has just tough matchups, but someone will end up going off for each of these guys and end up being a regular scoring game. But I'm going with Greg as well. I think that I trust his guys to be more consistent than Taylor's guys.
There you go.
I think for Taylor, he has to have Cooper Kupp go off.
He does. I agree. And that's what I was alluding to with when you look at the wide receivers with running backs. Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard and Jonathan Taylor kind of balance each other out. Najee Harris has been such a disappointment. So Jacobs should terribly outscore him. I'm going to compare the 2 Tampa Bay wide receivers to each other. So you have Jordan Addison versus Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp cannot be average with the way Jordan Addison is playing right now. You're absolutely right. He needs to go off. And then I don't like Michael Thomas, especially not over Nico Collins. I think they are going to come out of this bye very hot against this Carolina defense.
I'm also down on Harris as well. But I also don't think Josh Jacobs has had a Josh Jacobs year either.
That's fair.
He hasn't been dominating at all. I don't love him. Like I said, I hate all their matchups. I just trust Greg's players a little bit more than Taylor's at this point.
I think that's fair. So we agree for the most part this week. A lot of agreement. Is it only one? Our only disagreement is Darren and Rob P. I'm picking the favorite. You're picking Rob P. So I can't even pick up any games. I was hoping we were going to disagree more, but you're going to still have a firm lead in the contest after this week, no matter what happens.
That's my goal. I was trying to get a lead on you, and I'm just going to pick the same teams as you. So
there you go. Dan, we're looking at the current playoff picture. I still have Darren as my champion, obviously. I actually think I have 5 of my same 6 teams from last week. However, I have moved Stevie back out of the playoffs. And with me thinking Greg beats Taylor, even though Greg and Stevie will both be at 4 wins, I still look at Greg's team and prefer Greg's team to Stevie's team. So I have given Greg the final playoff spot on my team with a lot of teams on the outside looking in. This could flip very easily. I think there are me, you, and Greg are all in danger in my little model.
So who are your 6 then overall?
Darren at champion. I'll be honest, I haven't went through to decide who I'm giving the bye to, so I'm just going to have them in the order I've had them in. So it's Darren, Horvath, JR, myself, Greg, and you.
All right. I don't have JR. I took JR out of mine. So I have Darren, Steve, you, Greg, and myself.
Okay.
You
have Stevie in over JR right now.
Yes.
And that's fair. If Stevie wins this week, as we're both predicting, that would obviously give him a leg up on JR going in. I think Terry and Phil, obviously, we're both disrespecting Phil yet again. It doesn't help that we don't like anything that's happening with his team this week. So,
sorry, not sorry, Phil.
Yeah, exactly. And then, as always, Dan, we are going to end the show with the game. And guess what? I took it down last week, 49 points out of Patrick Mahomes and Kenneth Walker. Just snuck by Darren, who had by you. It was just me, you, and Drifter last week. Just stuck by you, who had Jalen Hurts, AJB combo, only beat you by 4 points. That is my 3rd win of the season. You also have 3 wins. Taylor has 1 win. We are the only one to take anything down. So anybody who's watching right now, if you want to participate, we're going to let you pick your top quarterback, your top flex play, wide receiver, running back, tight end, whoever you think is going to finish with the most points this week. Dan, I'll give you time to think about it. One thing I wanted to talk about, Dan, is we started this so we could talk a little bit more football about players, and then we just kind of stopped doing that. And so I've always kind of rushed this segment of the show. I want to expand on this segment of the show. So I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback. Yet again, Denver gives up the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks in our scoring format. Mahomes actually had a pretty bad week against them back in week 6, which, like, it's hilarious. They're playing each other this close to one another. Only 11 points in our scoring, 300 yards, 1 touchdown, had a turnover in that game. I think he bounces back greatly. So I am going to take Patrick Mahomes. And for my flex, looking at my rankings here. CMC. Actually, I was going to go something different, you prick. I am going to go. I have a feeling about a guy this week. I'm going to go Alvin Kamara.
I hate you. I hate you so much.
Passes he has been catching. I have been digging into this Colts defense, and the Colts give up the 4th most points to fantasy running backs. However, they give up the 9th fewest receptions to running backs, and I don't think they can stop Kamara. So they're already getting torched by the running back position, and now they have a guy who can catch passes on top of that. So give me Patrick Mahomes and Alvin Kamara. I feel better that you mocked me and then mocked me right into stealing your player, because I hadn't even decided yet, but then you helped me decide by being a dick about everything. So have fun with that. What do you got for me?
All right. So, yeah, I have my quarterback. I'm going to take Burrow. I think he's going to bounce back.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's going to bounce back. I think that offense is going to open up. The one thing I've noticed in the Bengals runs the past 2 seasons is that they've made some major offensive changes during the bye weeks. They completely 2 years ago they completely redid their entire running game during a bye week. They do. They really look at what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, what needs to be changed, and address it. And I think that they're going to come out ready to go. T. Higgins' ribs are going to be healthy. I expect a better Joe Burrow in the second half of the season. I'm taking Burrow today for my quarterback this week.
It's a ballsy call, my friend.
You know what? All right, here we go. I like this.
San Francisco gives up. I'll let you talk in a second. San Francisco gives up the 2nd fewest points to quarterbacks in our league, but another great pick. A guy who
just got shredded by Kirk Cousins.
Yep. If Cousins can do it, Burrow can do it. Breece Hall, really?
I'm gonna go Breece Hall against the terrible.
You're going real ballsy here. So we're just leaving Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, all these guys out there for the picking.
Listen, this game is about having fun, and I don't want to just pick superstars. I want to look for guys who I think have a chance off the radar, not top notch guys that, I could easily just went,
Patrick Mahomes.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to be too mean to you. I could have went Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, CMC. who could have monster games. That's what they always do. But I like the idea of taking Brees Hall going against the Giants. I see Dalvin Cook's throwing fits because he's not, playing.
Yeah, trade rumors circling around him now.
Yeah, I heard a roll of paper towels from one team for him.
There you go.
It looks like Hall's. I think going against that Giants defense, as we've seen this year, they can get shredded by everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Hall. I like that matchup. It's not, when they're in that offense, they're not going to be throwing the ball a ton. They want to spread it around. They want to run the ball, and the Giants just are garbage. So
I think that's fair.
I like when my fantasy players go against garbage.
Yeah. No, not a hard argument to make there. I have Brees Hall a lot of my DFS lineups that I've built so far this week too. I like him a lot this week. All right, Dan, that brings us to the end of the show. We are ready and roaring for week 8. Any parting words for our friends?
I love you guys. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks again for lunch, Phil. You made my week.
I was gonna say, that's all you really need to say. Kenny, I've been shitting on you this entire season, so I feel like, telling you to go fuck yourself and I'm going to destroy your team is really just what I've been saying every show about your team in some way, shape, or form. I did love GIF perfection from Kenny last week when he almost beat Darren asking, is this our king? Is this our king? I'm a big Killmonger guy. So Kenny, as a person, you're great, but as a fantasy manager, you're fucking trash. And I'm going to destroy you this week. It's going to be very, very bad for you. I love everybody in the league except Kenny. Have a great night. Have a good weekend, everybody.